My stepmother tried to steal my inheritance. She didn't expect my secret weapon. Hey Reddit, throwaway account because this is way too personal, and some of my family know my main. I-28F, never thought I'd be one of those people posting about family drama, but here we are. My dad passed away 6 months ago, and honestly, it still doesn't feel real. We weren't rich, but Dad worked hard his whole life to make sure I'd be okay when he was gone. Or so I thought. My stepmother, Linda, came into our lives when I was 15. She was never exactly evil stepmom material, but we never got super close. She always seemed to be running her agenda, but Dad loved her, so I tried to respect that. The thing is, since Dad's funeral, she's been different. Colder. Secretive. Locking doors, taking phone calls late at night, whispering with her lawyer friend. And every time I bring up the will, she acts like I'm being greedy or disrespectful to Dad's memory. But lately, a few things haven't been adding up. I found mail addressed to me tossed in the trash, and the lawyer Dad always trusted won't return my calls. My gut's telling me something is seriously off, but maybe I'm just being paranoid? I honestly don't know. All I know is I can't shake the feeling that Linda is hiding something, and it has everything to do with Dad's inheritance. The weirdness started a couple of weeks after the funeral. I was at Dad's house. Well, technically Linda's now, I guess, helping her go through his things. Or trying to. She'd insist I leave certain drawers alone, snapping that those are just old receipts or Dad wouldn't want you digging through his private stuff. Okay, but it was my family, too. Then, about a month later, I got a letter from the estate lawyer. Or so I thought. I only found it because I happened to be at the house when the mail arrived, and Linda tried to sort it before I could see. The letter was thin and formal. Apparently, there was a delay in processing the will due to missing documents. When I asked Linda about it, she just shrugged and said, "Paperwork always takes forever, sweetie. That's how these things go. Don't worry, I'll handle it." Except I did worry. My dad was borderline obsessive about details. He left binders with labeled tabs for everything. The idea that some crucial document had just vanished didn't sit right with me. And that's when I first started thinking, is Linda hiding something from me? Or am I just being a suspicious daughter who can't let go? The more I tried to let it go, the weirder things got. I'd come by to visit Linda, mostly out of guilt, honestly, and catch her on the phone, lowering my voice as soon as I walked in. Once, I heard her say, "Don't worry, she doesn't know anything. I've got it under control." She hung up the moment she saw me in the hallway, her face all polite smiles, asking if I wanted coffee. A week later, my cousin Amanda called me out of the blue. "Hey, did you ever get those boxes of Dad's stuff? Linda said she was mailing them to you." "No," I told her. She never even mentioned them. Amanda hesitated. "That's weird. She told me you'd already picked them up." That night, I barely slept. My mind kept spinning with possibilities. Was Linda just overwhelmed? Was she honestly forgetful? Or was something much more messed up happening behind the scenes? I started keeping notes, little things I noticed, random details I might have ignored before. Looking back, I think I already knew the truth. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. One Saturday, I came over with a box of Dad's old photos to give to Linda. She was busy on another one of her long phone calls, so I just let myself in. As I walked past Dad's study, his sacred little corner with the heavy wooden desk, I noticed the door was locked. That was odd. Dad never locked that door, not even when I was a kid. I called out, "Hey Linda, do you have the key? I wanted to look for those old bank statements Dad kept." She snapped back, "There's nothing in there you need. It's just personal." Her tone was so sharp it caught me off guard. Later, when she went out for groceries, I checked the study window. It was painted shut, but I could see papers stacked on the desk, a few with legal-looking headers. I even caught a glimpse of my name, typed in bold at the top of a page. I felt my stomach drop. Something was wrong. Linda was hiding something from me, and I was done pretending it was just my imagination. That was the day I decided to start digging for real. I started small, asking questions, trying to catch Linda off guard. At first, she stuck to her script. "These things take time. Trust me, the lawyer will call." But every time I pressed for details, what lawyer, what documents, what timeline, she'd get defensive or suddenly remember some urgent errand she had to run. So, I decided to go straight to the source. I dug out Dad's old phone and laptop from a box in the garage. Linda said she'd wiped them for donations, but thankfully, she hadn't gotten around to it yet. The laptop was password protected, but Dad used the same code for everything, his favorite dog's name. Classic Dad. Scrolling through his emails, I found a folder labeled Will and Estate. It was full of messages between Dad and a lawyer named Mr. Porter. Most were routine, checking in, discussing paperwork. But then, I spotted an email dated just 2 weeks before Dad passed. Porter, please make sure my daughter receives everything I've left for her. Linda knows my wishes, but I want it in writing. My heart pounded. Why would Dad be so specific? And why hadn't I heard from this Porter guy at all? That night, I drafted an email to Mr. Porter, explaining who I was and asking for an update about my father's will. I didn't sleep much, waiting for a reply. The next morning, I woke up to nothing. No reply from Mr. Porter. I waited all day, refreshing my inbox every hour. By evening, still no answer. I started to wonder if I'd emailed the wrong address, or maybe Porter was on vacation. But then I remembered, Dad hated delays. He would have chosen a lawyer who responds. Frustrated, I decided to call Porter's office directly. I found the number in one of Dad's old emails and dialed, my hands shaking. The receptionist answered, cheerful and polite, until I mentioned my name and why I was calling. Then, suddenly, she sounded nervous. I'm sorry, Ms. Carter, Mr. Porter is unavailable at the moment. Can I take a message? I left my name and number and hung up with a sinking feeling. Was this normal? Or was someone telling Porter not to talk to me? I started to suspect Linda was pulling more strings than I realized. Later that evening, Linda showed up at my apartment, unannounced. She brought takeout and tried to act all motherly, asking if I was lonely or needed anything. It felt fake, but I played along, asking her straight out, have you heard from Dad's lawyer? Her smile never wavered. No, honey, but don't stress. These things just take time. You'll get your share, eventually. That night, for the first time, I realized Linda was actively trying to keep me in the dark. By now, paranoia had become my default state. I started second-guessing everything Linda said and did. It felt like she was always 2 steps ahead of me, blocking every path to the truth. I was ready to lose hope, until a message popped up on my phone. It was from Amanda, my cousin. Hey, do you want to get coffee tomorrow? I have something you should see. We met at a little cafe the next morning. Amanda looked nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. She slid a manila envelope across the table. I found these cleaning out Grandma's attic. I thought they might help you. Inside were photocopies of Dad's original will signed and dated, with clear instructions that I was to inherit the house, the savings account, everything. There were also handwritten notes from Dad to his lawyer, spelling out that Linda was not to contest the will, under any circumstances. Amanda squeezed my hand. I didn't know what Linda was up to, but I had a feeling you'd need proof. I felt a surge of gratitude and anger. Linda was trying to rewrite history, but now I had Dad's words in black and white. That night, I locked the copies in my safe and started mapping out my next move. Linda had no idea that her grip on my inheritance was slipping and that I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Armed with Amanda's envelope, I finally had real leverage, but I needed more. I remembered those documents I'd glimpsed through the study window. If Linda had forged or hidden anything, that's where it would be. I waited for the perfect moment. One afternoon, Linda left for one of her endless yoga classes. I knew she'd be gone for at least 2 hours. I grabbed my old set of house keys. Thankfully, she hadn't changed the locks and snuck inside. The study door was still locked, but Dad's toolbox in the garage had a set of lockpicks he'd taught me to use as a kid, just in case. My hands shook, but the lock clicked open after a couple of tense tries. Inside, the desk was a mess of papers. I sifted through the stacks, utility bills, credit card statements, letters addressed to me, all unopened. Then, buried beneath a pile of magazines, I found a folder marked with my dad's handwriting. Estate, for my name, only. Inside were original copies of the will, property deeds, and, most shocking, a letter from Dad, addressed to me. If you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Trust yourself. Don't let anyone talk you out of what's rightfully yours. Porter has instructions. Stay strong. Love, Dad. Tears stung my eyes, but I quickly snapped photos of every document. I made sure to put everything back exactly as I'd found it. As I left, adrenaline still pounding, I knew for the first time that I might win this fight. Linda had tried to erase me, but she'd underestimated just how much Dad believed in me and how far I'd go to defend his trust. With hard evidence finally in hand, I spent the next few days carefully planning my next steps. I forwarded the scanned documents and Dad's letter to Mr. Porter's official email, along with a firm message. I have proof of my father's wishes and copies of the original will. If I don't hear from you soon, I'll be forced to seek legal action. To my surprise, Porter called me that same evening. His voice was tense but relieved. I'm so sorry for the radio silence, my name. There's been a lot of outside pressure. Your stepmother tried to have me removed from the estate as executor. I refused, but she's made things difficult. He confirmed what I feared. Linda had been stalling the process, contesting the will with claims that Dad changed his mind verbally before he died. But with the original documents and Dad's letter, Porter assured me we finally had enough to challenge her lies in court. I felt a strange mix of vindication and dread. I'd always avoided open conflict, but now, with everything laid bare, it was clear there was no more room for tiptoeing around Linda's feelings. The time had come to confront her directly, and to make sure she could never gaslight or manipulate her way out of the truth again. The next morning, I texted Linda, asking to meet at the house to talk. She responded with her usual sugary sweet. Of course, dear. See you soon. But I could tell from the hurried tone of her reply that she sensed something was up. I arrived with Amanda by my side, no more facing Linda alone. The tension was thick the moment we stepped inside. Linda greeted us with her rehearsed smile, but her eyes darted anxiously between me and the folder in my hand. I took a deep breath. We need to talk, Linda. Now. About Dad's will and everything you've tried to hide from me. Her facade cracked, just for a split second. I told you, the lawyers are handling it. I cut her off and laid the envelope on the coffee table. I have Dad's will, the real one, and the letter he wrote me. Mr. Porter's already seen everything. You can't lie your way out of this anymore. Linda went pale. For a moment, she looked afraid. Amanda stood up for me, her voice steady. It's over, Linda. We know everything. Linda tried to recover, blustering about misunderstandings and family loyalty, but this time, I didn't back down. I told her plainly, she had one chance to walk away quietly or face a very public, very messy legal fight. For the first time, Linda was speechless. For a few tense seconds, the room was completely silent. Linda just stared at me, her hands clenched tight in her lap. Then, her whole demeanor changed. She started to cry loud, theatrical sobs, accusing me of trying to ruin her life, of being cruel after all she'd done for my dad. But I wasn't a scared kid anymore. I let her rant, watching as she cycled through every manipulative tactic in her playbook. Guilt, threats, even trying to hug Amanda and me, begging us to let the past go. When that didn't work, she turned cold. You'll regret this. You're just a greedy child. You don't know what you're doing. Lawyers will eat you alive. I held my ground. I know exactly what I'm doing, Linda. And so did Dad. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door. Amanda and I just looked at each other, equal parts shaken and relieved. We'd finally called her bluff. That night, Linda started calling relatives, spinning her own story about how I was robbing her blind. But I sent everyone copies of the will and Dad's letter with a simple message. These are Dad's wishes, in his own words. I'm just honoring them. Suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. Family members who had once doubted me started calling to apologize, offering their support. With the family finally on my side and the truth out in the open, things moved fast. Mr. Porter filed the necessary paperwork with the court, submitting all the evidence Amanda and I had gathered. Linda, desperate to maintain control, hired her lawyer, a slick, overconfident guy who tried to intimidate us with threats of endless litigation. But Porter was prepared. At the first hearing, he calmly presented Dad's will, the signed and dated documents, and the handwritten letter. Linda's lawyer tried to argue Dad had changed his mind, but with no evidence, it was clear her case was crumbling. The judge's patience for Linda's theatrics wore thin almost immediately. She rolled her eyes at Linda's attempts to paint herself as a victim. When Amanda took the stand and testified about finding the will and all the times Linda lied about the documents, it was like a nail in the coffin. At one point, Linda even tried to claim that the signatures were forged until a handwriting expert verified everything was authentic. By the end of the day, the judge issued a temporary injunction, freezing all estate accounts so Linda couldn't touch a cent until the case was resolved. For the first time in months, I finally felt like I could breathe. The court process dragged on for weeks, but I was ready for every twist. What Linda didn't know was that Dad had set up a backup plan, a secret weapon he never told anyone about. Years earlier, Dad had given me access to a safe deposit box at the bank, just in case anything ever gets complicated. I'd almost forgotten about it, but when I checked, I found copies of every major document, plus a video Dad had recorded on his phone, dated 2 days before his stroke. In the video, Dad spoke directly to the camera. "If you're watching this, something's gone very wrong. My wishes are clear. Everything goes to my daughter, as stated in my will. Linda, if you're trying to fight this, please remember what's right." We brought the video and the contents of the box to the next court hearing. The judge watched it in silence, then asked Linda's lawyer if he still wanted to contest the will. He didn't. There was nothing left to say. Linda sat there, stunned, her carefully built web of lies collapsing in front of everyone. All her manipulations, threats, and fake tears meant nothing now. Amanda squeezed my hand as relief finally washed over me. Dad had thought of everything. He'd trusted me to see it through. After the final hearing, it was official. The court recognized Dad's will as valid and granted me full rights to the inheritance, just as he'd intended. Linda was ordered to return every cent she'd moved from the estate accounts and vacate the family home within a month. The judge even referred her actions to the authorities for investigation into possible fraud. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but mostly I just felt exhausted. The house was suddenly quiet, almost unfamiliar after all the conflict. I found myself wandering from room to room, half expecting Dad to appear, or for Linda to come stomping down the hall, blustering about her rights. In the weeks that followed, the family's attitude shifted completely. Relatives who'd once believed Linda's stories reached out to apologize, bringing casseroles and awkward hugs. Amanda became my closest ally. We joked that Dad had left us both a new kind of family, one built on trust, not blood. As for Linda, the last I heard, she was trying to reinvent herself in another town, complaining to anyone who would listen that she'd been betrayed by everyone. But her power over my life was gone for good. And as I finally unpacked the last of Dad's things, his favorite books, his old watch, his letters, I realized how much stronger I'd become through all this. I had lost my father, but I had kept his faith in me. It's been a few months since the dust settled, and honestly, I still have days when the whole ordeal feels unreal. Sometimes, late at night, I replay everything in my mind, the secrets, the confrontation, the courtrooms, Linda's desperate schemes. I miss my dad every single day, but now, instead of feeling powerless, I feel proud. Proud that I honored his wishes, even when it would have been easier to back down. I've learned a lot about people, about the legal system, about myself. Sometimes the villains in your life are hiding in plain sight, wrapped in polite smiles and sweet words. But I also learned how strong I can be when it matters, and how important it is to trust your gut, gather proof, and ask for help when you need it. If you're reading this and facing something similar, don't give up. Document everything. Find your allies. Believe in yourself, even when it feels like the world is against you. Sometimes, your secret weapon is just your courage and the people who truly care about you. And Dad, if you can see this somehow, thank you for trusting me and for teaching me to never let go of what's rightfully mine.